everyone. In this video, I'll be showcasing my No NFT Lasagna build. I did create a 3-part series of guide videos to show you my thought process and what I did to get from the very beginning to the end of this build design. You'll be able to see almost everything, and you see the mistakes I make and the adjustments that I make to correct them. And I pretty much come up with things while I'm working on it to see what works best. So hopefully if you do decide to watch those videos, which they are pretty long, they're about an hour long each, but if you do decide to watch those or skim through those, hopefully you'll learn a good amount of information on how you can work on not only this competition's design, but future designs yourself. So I'm going to be showing the stats to this build on the right of the screen. And I think this one's a very good one, to be honest. So it's doing about 43.5 lasagna per hour, and this has been running for 11 hours, so it's a very stable rate. And I'm going to explain the build. I'm going to start from the top. I have 2 Italian restaurants making lasagna. And of course, a lasagna takes 2 cheese, 2 pasta sauce, and 1 egg. Whenever you click craft, you're just going to see the pizzas, but you want to scroll all the way to the right in order to find lasagna. Now I'm going to explain the cheese. I have 2 mixing tents making cheese, which uses 2 milk, 1 rice vinegar. The milk comes from the 12 milk barns over here, and there's also a total of 40 meadows, and that gives me more than enough milk, really. Rice vinegar, I have 4 sauce facilities working on rice vinegar. All the sauce facilities have the 2 passive water that they need, so they only have to pick up white rice and sugarcane. White rice comes from the 5 mixing tents over here making white rice. They need 1 passive energy, which they all have, and they need 2 husk rice, so they'll go to the silos to collect it. Husk rice comes from the rice fields here. I have 4 rice fields, 3 of them are on a green timer. This one is on a yellow timer just to balance the amount of rice, husk rice that I get. And as for the sugarcane, I have 4 sugarcane fields on a green timer. Now the silos will store the husk rice, sugarcane, tomatoes, and brine. I have 2 silos just to prevent the silos from getting jammed. So I explained the cheese. Next, the pasta sauce. So I have, I believe, yeah, 2 sauce facilities making the pasta sauce right here. And pasta sauce requires 1 tomato paste, 3 salt, and 1 sugar. So I have 2 sauce facilities making tomato paste right here. They use rice vinegar along with the cheese, but they also use 3 tomatoes, which they'll collect from the silos. And I have 3 tomato farms producing all the tomatoes that I need. Now the salts, well, that comes from the windmills making salt, which requires brine. I have a total of 8 windmills on a red timer making salt, and all these windmills on the sides are actually green timers. So I have 6 windmills on a green timer making salt. So total 14 windmills making salt, 6 green, 8 red timers. As for the salt fields, I have a total of 12. Color is still visually bugged. They're technically green timers. That means they have the fastest craft timer. So I have 12 salt fields with fastest craft timer because they have the 3 passive salty they need from being right next to the ocean edges. So I'm getting all the brine that I need for all the salts that I'm producing. I'm actually slightly overproducing salt, and that's just because although I thought salt was going to be the bottleneck at first, the bottleneck is something else. Something else in this build has to be improved before salt is improved even further. So this build has no issues with salt, which is good, at least for the rate it's doing. So that explains the 3 salts, and then the 1 sugar. Well, I already explained the sugarcane field, so now I just have to explain the windmills making the sugar. I have a total of 8 windmills on a red timer. making sugar. And you have to balance the sugar cane between the windmills making sugar and the sauce facilities making rice vinegar. So you are actually better off slightly overproducing sugar cane if possible. Just keep that in mind. I'm trying to give you a hint there. Now that explains pasta sauce, and the last thing here is the eggs, which is the easiest part. One chicken coop gives me all the eggs that I need for this. That's pretty much all there is to it. Now the chicken and the eggs and the milk, of course, picked up by the ATVs, which I have 3 ATVs over here. I got a total of 10 tree farms, 12 tree farms, but 3 of them are on the yellow timer. So this one, and this one are on a yellow timer. So of course I got 6 loggers working on all the wood that I need for my livestock and on my windmills. I have a total of 10 tractors working on all my crops. That includes the salt fields, rice fields, sugarcane fields, and tomato farms. I have 3 storehouses to store all my goods in. There's a chance they may get jammed up, but not for long. It did happen to me, which I'll show you in a moment. Of course, fuel storage to store the gasoline. You have your standard industrial passive gasoline setup here with 2 water pumps, 2 power plants, a refinery in the middle making gasoline, and a refinery to the side making petroleum. I have a forklift to pick up the crude oil from 3 oil pumps. 2 are close by, but 1 is farther away over here. None of the oil pumps are casting dirty on anything, so don't worry about that. And as for trading, in this build, normally you may see me use a trade depot, but in this build I opted for a trade pier because I can't really put anything in this spot other than the builder. And I can't put a trade depot up here because then it would impact my crops. So for this build design, I'm using a trade pier. Some of you may be wondering, hey, I have an express depot NFT. How am I going to implement it in this build? You're gonna have to figure that out because this build is not optimized for a trade depot or an express depot. It uses a trade pier. So that's all I can tell you. I don't know if I set the meadows, but I think it's about 40 meadows. But yeah, I believe I've explained the entirety of the build. Let me show you my production rates again. So as you can see, I lost 1 lasagna, I lost 4 salt, I lost 1 rice vinegar. So at some point, my storehouses did get jammed. I lost a few things, just a few things. So I do believe 3 storehouses is enough. I don't believe you would need 4. One of the reasons that may have happened is because of my auto cell, which I'll show you in a moment. Let me just further explain the production monitor. It is making enough salt. It seems to be making enough rice vinegar as well. It's making more than enough milk. Just barely enough sugar, more than enough eggs. White rice is okay, cheese is good. I believe it's the pasta sauce that's the bottleneck, and one of those reasons would be the tomato paste. Yeah, the tomato paste is slowing down the pasta sauce. So you may want to keep that in mind if you wish to improve this build. This build can, of course, be improved. Don't be fooled. 43.5 or whatever lasagna per hour is really good, in my opinion. But I do believe that you can get close to 50 lasagna per hour without using NFTs. Speaking of which, just so I can verify, no NFTs used. I do own them, but I'm not using them for this test, for this design. And finally, let me show you my auto cell. Basically everything other than gasoline on auto cell. So, well, let me Usually you can't see it, but let me just do this. There we go. I went invisible. So the crops, tomatoes, husk rice, sugarcane, they're all at a sell amount of 15. That way you always have some spare to work on other things. You don't want to put them at 10 and then like you have workers going to the silos to pick them up and then they suddenly get sold and disappear, right? Everything else is either sell amount of 12 or 10. So like cheese, rice vinegar, white rice, salt, sugar, not the eggs, but just about everything else is at a sell amount of 12. I actually never set brine at a sell amount just because it never gets sold. It just gets turned to salt. But you do probably want to set brine to auto sell just in case, if possible. Yeah, there we go. Whoops, I didn't mean to sell gasoline. See, stuff like that happens and then it just sold the batch, but that's fine. Basically you want everything on auto sell, either at a sell at amount of 10 or 15 for crops. You don't have to auto sell gasoline. You can if you want to, but I usually don't like the idea of auto selling gasoline. But this does make enough crude oil to make all the gasoline that you need. Okay, so that's everything explained. Went a little longer than I wanted it to, but I did want to explain everything. Like I said before, if you want to see a full in-depth guide of how I went from start to finish, like literally everything, and I explain almost everything as well and all the changes that I made, I do recommend you check out my series of guides that I made for this competition. It's gonna help you out. They are long videos, but I do believe it's gonna help you out. So yeah, that's everything. So if you found this informative or helpful, feel free to like the video, leave a comment with any feedback or questions you may have, and consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. I do plan on live streaming the beginning of the competition, so feel free to hang out and watch if you would like to. I appreciate your support and thanks for watching.